Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to The Breakdown, deFORMULA's podcast, where we deconstruct the college formula for you. I'm here with Natalia, who studies music business at NYU's prestigious Steinhardt. Natalia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So, Natalia went to the Baldwin School, which is an all-girls private school located in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. And she was a lifer there as she started Baldwin in pre-K. Natalia, how do you feel about going from a small all-girls private school in the mainline suburbs of Pennsylvania to now being in the Big Apple at NYU?
It was definitely a big culture shock and a major change for me. For me, I loved it. From being at Baldwin for 14 years straight, it was time for me to get out of that bubble, and I went to the biggest place I could. I'm in the middle of Manhattan. It can be kind of chaotic and kind of crazy at times, but it was exactly what I needed and exactly the pace that I love. So
that's awesome. So how did you go about applying to NYU? Did you submit an ED or RD application?
I applied ED1. Because when I first visited junior year, I just fell in love with the campus and the school and the environment, and I knew it was the place for me.
So how many schools did you visit before submitting that?
I probably visited about anywhere between 6 to 10. And then obviously online, you're looking at every college's website and stuff like that and looking at what they offer and hearing them when they come to talk to your school or at college.
Yeah.
Those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what was it about NYU that made you submit that ED application? Because I know for most people it's just so confusing between deciding that this is their first choice.
Yeah, I totally understand that. For me, the environment was one of the biggest things. I absolutely love New York City. Mm-hmm. And I loved the fact that New York, we have a campus, but it's not a gated community. It's
right.
Not you're smack dab in the middle of the real world, and so it forces you to mature a lot faster. And I don't know, it's just a very different vibe than a traditional college experience.
Yeah,
it was
for
exactly
sure.
what I wanted. So I knew that right when I first visited. But then I also chose NYU because specifically for me, for what I was looking for, it was academically exactly what I needed.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I wanted to study music business, and that's not a course that a lot of colleges offer in the US. And a lot of schools out in California will have programs similar, but I wanted to be really close to home, mm-hmm. Close enough that I could come home for family stuff or birthdays, stuff like that. So I wanted to be closer to home. The only stuff near-ish us was NYU, Drexel, mm-hmm. Northeastern, and I ended up applying to Berklee College of Music in Boston, which I didn't think I was going to do. But those were really the only schools that I applied to and cared about because of the music stuff.
Yeah.
But NYU was perfect for me because it had music and business.
It's amazing.
So in Steinhardt, I get to take classes, business classes at Stern
mm-hmm.
School of Business.
So it's interdisciplinary education.
Yeah. And so I'm taking music classes
cool.
with Steinhardt and business classes with Stern. So I'm getting a more well-rounded education, and
that's awesome.
It was what I wanted.
Yeah, so I know at Baldwin we were used to a pretty small class size with the student to teacher ratio being around 12-1 most mm-hmm. of the time. So what is it like at NYU?
For most of my classes it's kind of similar because I'm in a pretty small major. There are a couple classes that are big lecture halls, I had to take algebra and calc, which is obviously a major lecture hall. And then my econ class was a major lecture hall. So there will be a couple more. My business classes actually are all kind of bigger classes. But my more music-related classes and the majority of classes that make up my major are I'd say around 17 people, mm-hmm. 17 to 20 for one teacher, which is a little bit bigger than Baldwin, but pretty comparable.
So you had a pretty selective program that you joined, right?
Yeah, they only accept, I think, 50 people.
Wow.
It's a 5% acceptance
That's
rate,
insane.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit, and we want to hear what it's like living in New York City. Tell us about how the housing is, and then what it's like kind of transitioning from a quiet suburban life to being literally amidst the hustle and bustle of the city.
Yeah, I mean, so for housing, for freshman housing, there's I think 9 different residence halls scattered throughout Lower Manhattan. And for freshman housing, they're all relatively close to campus, which I really liked. Even though I was an ED1 student and I was accepted ED1, I got my last choice housing.
Oh no.
Which was, I thought it was going to be a lot worse than it was. I ended up in a dorm called Reuben, if anyone's interested in NYU. Reuben Hall. It's the low-cost housing, which I felt kind of guilty about because it's, like, my family obviously appreciated it, my mother especially, but we didn't, like, apply specifically for it, so I felt guilty taking away from other kids that really needed it. But it has, like, no AC, it was a lot smaller.
Oh, wow.
So the first month was terrible.
Oh, my gosh.
You get used to it, and especially living in the middle of the city, I would say the walks to classes is one of the biggest thing that I've noticed that's different to a lot of other college campuses, where you're not walking on a campus, you're not biking to class. Well, I mean, you can bike to classes, but I'm too scared to bike in the city. But you're like walking through the streets of New York with like regular people that are walking to like their day jobs.
You're fully immersed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is no feel of like this is a college campus. I feel like I'm living my real life and just going to classes.
It's interesting. So how about the food? What are the dining halls like?
We have a lot of dining hall options actually compared to like some of the schools that I've heard about, like when I talk to my friends about their experiences. We have a lot of options, some better than others. What I've noticed is the ones farther away from like main campus, Washington Square Park, have better quality food. So it's just kind of like you have to make the hike, and it is a hike. It's like 20 minutes, which I don't know. It can be annoying in like the cold when it's snowing and stuff like that. But yeah, you gotta make the hike for the good food. But there are some, we're like notorious for our Palladium brunch, Palladium is our gym, but it's a gym, res hall, and dining hall. And so Palladium brunch every Sunday morning from like 11 to 3 o'clock, they have like this beautiful like buffet, like it's fancy.
Wow.
There's like fancy waffles, but the biggest thing is chocolate
What
fountain.
a treat.
But yeah, they feed us well on Sunday brunch. Every other day of the week is like resolved.
What about food trucks? You ever get any of that street food?
I'm
a big fan of the Nuts for Nuts that New York has. They're so good.
I'm a big fan of Mr. Softy. The ice cream trucks.
Ooh.
Yeah, ice cream trucks in the spring and summer. But I don't know, there's some like falafel trucks that are really popular on campus.
I love falafel.
Yeah, but I don't know. I never, because my thing is I never carry cash on me.
Okay.
So that was always hard for me.
That makes sense.
I do have some friends that love the food trucks in the area though.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a treat.
Yeah.
So what's the party scene like? Clubbing, frat parties?
It's very different than your traditional college campus.
Okay.
I think that people go to NYU for that. You have to go, if you're interested in NYU, you have to go in knowing that and being aware of it and loving it. For me, I didn't want like the traditional college experience, like state school experience where you're like the big thing is going to football games and stuff, and like tailgating and stuff like that. That is some people's cup of tea. It's not for me.
Right.
And I also didn't want a school where like the social scene is the only way to make friends.
Yeah.
Which I've seen at a lot of colleges, and it's just not who I am. So at NYU, what I love about NYU and what I love about New York is you can really do whatever you want. Like, because you're in the middle of New York, if you want to, like, if your thing is going clubbing and going to bars, there's a billion and one for you.
Yeah.
If your thing is just hanging in parks or going to museums or going to this or that concerts, there's a billion and one things for you to do. We do have Greek life and we do have frats and sororities, but it's not something that, like, if you're not a part of the Greek life, you don't have a social life. It's something that honestly no one really cares about unless you're in it.
It's pretty small there?
It's really small, yeah. Okay. No one really cares about it. Except for the people that are in it and they have a great, like I have some friends that are in sororities and they love it and they love the community and stuff that it brings. But it's definitely a very different Greek life experience than you would get at any other traditional experience.
That's really cool. So, Natalia, you're really into music. I'm sure the city is great for cultivating those interests of yours.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just with NYU in general, like students love to collab with one another. Students are really, everyone's wanting to listen to your stuff or help each other out, which I like love and appreciate, and it's just such a creative environment. But then also just being in New York, you can catch a show of any type genre of music like every night. There's like 1,000,000,001 different concert venues and ways to view and experience and create art and music.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a really big thing for me.
Wow. So to wrap things up, what would you say your favorite 3 things are about NYU?
One is definitely location.
Yeah.
And I mean, anyone that goes to NYU will say this. You go to NYU because it's in New York. And so that's really one of the biggest things for me, was just being smack dab in New York, being smack dab like in the middle of all that hustle and bustle, and it's exactly what I wanted. Mm-hmm. It's definitely not for everyone. I know a lot of people that went there and just got lost in it all. Mm-hmm. And so it is definitely easy to get lost in it, but you have to have the right type of personality and attitude towards it. So that would definitely be one of my top 3. Number 2 is just purely that it has the academic, like what I wanted. I can study music business, and it's like the business side of the music industry, but there's also a bunch of creative outlets for me to be purely musical as well if I want to. And 3, kind of going off that, is NYU so big on, or at least my major, so big on networking, which is so important in any industry. But like in my major, they really enforce it. And like from freshman year, you're getting like real world experience networking with, they bring in industry executives and just people working in the industry once a week to talk to us. We have time to talk to them afterwards. One of my favorite things was actually one of my classes called concert management. We had to put together a concert, by ourselves. It was a group project, but I was with 2 guys that did nothing. So I was doing this by myself.
Oh my God.
And you're in charge of booking the artist, booking the venue, negotiating contracts, negotiating the money. It's like real world experience. Like that's a real job someone's doing, and I'm doing it like it's just experience that I wouldn't have gotten if I had gone to any of the other schools that I applied to, even though they have very respectable music industry majors and programs. I couldn't see myself anywhere else.
So to finish up, what is the single most important thing you would tell your high school self?
Calm down. I mean, everyone, I think especially at Baldwin, because it's always been and always will be a college prep school, and so everything is very, from middle school, everything's surrounded about like where are you going to college. And I, like everybody else, got really caught up in that. And you know, you set your heart on this thing that you think it's what you want, and then the time actually comes to apply to college and you're like, this doesn't fit me at all. And I think it can be a really toxic mindset. And so I think for me, just being able to, in high school, if I could have just like calmed down a little bit, like just taken a step back and been like, everyone says this, like it'll all work out, you'll end up where you need to be. But like just actually believing it for a second would have helped me get through it.
That's a great tip. Natalia, it was lovely having you on the breakdown, and thank you all for tuning in to deFORMULA's podcast, and come back soon and we'll keep deconstructing the college formula. You can download deFORMULA on the iOS store to meet with a college student on campus or through video chat. For more information, you can check out our website at deFORMULA, which is deformula.com. If you're interested in a feature on the breakdown, email us at thebreakdown@deformula.com.